Thank you all. It's a treat to be able to be with you before. I don't think I've ever had the chance to speak in your district again. And even though I'm sitting in Greensboro, North Carolina, it's great to be with you today, even if it is remote. So we're going to talk about intentional strategies, which are proven strategies that your clubs can take to address just what Terry was talking about during that first section there. But before we get into those intentional membership strategies, or set the stage, if you will, about this whole area of attracting members to Rotary. Terry showed you the worksheet there that is highly predictive. As he told you, about an 80% accuracy each year. The trends tend to hold. And so when we say to you, hope is not a strategy, what we're saying is you have to be very intentional about what you're going to do in order to grow your membership. I promise you that you will not just accidentally get lucky and have everything just fall into place. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to be intentional about what you're doing to have that success. But the good news is we're going to provide you with some tools that will allow you to be successful. I also want to clarify, sometimes we are described, or we even describe ourselves as a service organization, but we are a membership organization. Service is our product. It's what we do, but we are a membership organization. We have to think that way in terms of taking care of our members, providing what our members want, or they will vote with their feet and wave on their way out the door. So we have to focus on being a top flight member organization, and then we can provide our product or service. So before we get into all the great things that we know work, that are proven methods, I want to talk about some things that don't work so well. And in your resource manual you were sent, you can flip to pages 1 and 2 if you want to take a look at some of these items. Club socials. Now, I have been to many club socials that were intended to be membership events. I was happy to let someone buy me a cola or a glass of wine. That was great. Happy to have nice conversation. I'm pretty extroverted. That's fun. That's great. But typically these socials, that's all they are, is a social. There's no call to action. There's no specific call, and typically without that call to action, what you get is exactly that, no action. So I want to encourage you to stay away from club socials. We will talk about a gathering of prospective members that can be quite effective for you, but it will have a little different kind of setup for you. Inviting prospective members to a regular club meeting. That is one thing that I will never do, at least for a first introduction to Rotary. And why do I say that? Well, you walk into a Rotary meeting not knowing our rituals, not knowing our jargon. You see people praying to this blue banner with 4 statements on it. You see people talking in acronyms. You see everybody pop out of their seats at the same time, sit down at the same time. Feels a lot like church, right? It's not the way to introduce somebody to what we're about the value of being a member. So we're going to talk about some ways you can introduce prospective members or target members to Rotary, but I would not recommend at least that first introduction to Rotary being at a typical club meeting. Incentives. Okay, incentives are great. You're buying a car, we all feel good about that, feeling like we got a little something off the regular price, but it's not a way to sell Rotary. In fact, we don't want to sell Rotary at all. We want to be sure that we are conducting our clubs in such a way that we're going to attract members. What we want prospective members to see is the value of membership. And that can take place in many forms, and probably multiple forms for most of us. Be that personal development or professional development, or the opportunity for service, or networking, or leadership opportunities, all the things that we value. I know I'm talking to a group of leaders today, and you already believe in the value of Rotary, but we want to be sure that we're not out there selling Rotary, that we're not out there running recruitment pitches, if you will, with incentives, because you really can't create a big enough incentive to make that worthwhile for someone who might be interested in Rotary, or to tip them to be interested in Rotary. Similarly, free or reduced dues for new members. You know, we'll talk about one scenario where that might make sense, but in general, to be a member of an organization like this, it's going to have some costs. It's going to have some dues. So we might as well be upfront about that, and again, sell or make apparent the value that Rotary can bring. Podium announcements, newsletters, emails, all of these ways that are very easy for the person making the announcement to make a big broadcast and to send out a big broad message. But I can tell you that when I'm sitting in an audience and someone from the podium says, here is what we need to do, that washes right over me. There's no accountability. I have no accountability. I have no commitment. That person was not speaking directly to me, it didn't feel like. So I want to try to stay away from that as a sole way of bringing about membership growth. It can be part of a strategy and announcement, but we'll talk about some ways to make that more effective with follow-up later. Likewise, direct mail, print advertising, billboards, postcards, all of these things, again, are designed to generate a big, broad message. But I suspect that most direct mail and postcards and such that I get, if I don't see a relative's name on it, I have a special container where I store those things, and I bet that you do too. So I don't want to harp too much on these things that don't work, but I do want to be sure, because we all have limited time, that we're putting our efforts into the things and the strategies that actually do work. Now, I think all of you saw last week a really cute and substantive video from Darren Hardy about being more than we have been so that we can accomplish all that we want to. And you see this quote, you must either shrink your dreams or expand your skills. Well, I'll tell you right now, where I come from, and I know where you come from, Rotarians don't shrink dreams. That's not what we're about. So we're going to talk about how we expand our skills, how we expand the portfolio of strategies that your clubs can have to help you lead to that attraction, so that you can reach that number that where Terry just made you do math a little while ago, so that you can reach that number where you want to be. So let's talk about the better way to move toward membership attraction. So on pages 3 and 4 of your resources, you will see 10 proven intentional strategies. Now, Terry, he told you all the ways he has verified the numbers that he uses. And trust me, over the time I have known Terry, he has made me a complete believer in those numbers. They are real. These strategies we're going to present to you are real, and they are proven, and I have implemented all of them with great success. So let's talk about a who do you know exercise. This is covered in a little bit more detail on pages 5 and 6. Now, in the old days, when we would do a who do you know exercise, and I say the old days, I've earned all this gray hair, we would have phone books on the tables at Rotary, and we would flip through the yellow pages to help jog our memories about who we knew who might be interested in Rotary, but was not yet a part. Today, we've gotten all modern, and we have mobile phones. It's not showing up great there. Mobile phones. And with your mobile phones, you have your Rolodex. You have your whole world in there. They're computers that we can carry in our pocket is what those mobile phones are. So at a club assembly, and this is important, at a club assembly, an actual dedicated meeting, because membership is that important, you can use those mobile phones to jog your memory about who you know who would be a great Rotarian, and make a list. Now, Terry mentioned the 10-3-1 rule. Those of you who have been in some type of sales probably know what that 10-3-1 rule is, which is it takes about 10 leads to get 3 conversations about Rotary, 3 bona fide leads, And then out of those 3, you're likely to get 1 member. So the quick math on that is for every member you want, you're probably going to need 10 leads, some type of referral, acquaintance, someone on a list who you're going to approach. So just like Terry, I'm making you do some math there, but if like with that sample Rotary Club, you're trying to gain 13 new members in your club, add a 0, that's about 130 leads that you're going to need. So you want to be sure that you announce that you're going to have this club assembly. You want members to know about it in advance. You want them to know it's important. It's not, oh no, another club assembly. This would be a great day to go clip my toenails instead of go to Rotary. You want them to know this is important. This is a day you want to be at Rotary, and it's important for the overall health of your club. Be sure people know that that day is coming up. Remind them beforehand. We're going to ask you to generate contact information. We want you to be thinking about people who would be great additions to this club, people who are interested in their community, people who are interested in personal development, people who are leaders. We can provide you with a who do you know worksheet, and you can put those in the seats. You really want to get people in the flow of this entire exercise because this is your lead list. As a business, this would be your lifeblood, your referrals, your potential clients. It's no different for us. You want to have the right person in your club to establish the why. You want your inspirational speaker to talk about why Rotary has been so important in her life and why we should all want to share that with our friends, acquaintances, our greater circle of friends and professional associates, and why Rotary would be important for them and why they can bring something great to your club. That's where you want your inspirational speaker. So then you're going to get into the exercise. Who do you know who would be a great addition to this club? You can have people break up by table. I know it's a little tougher in a social distancing kind of era, but you can still have people group to work on coming up with their lists, and from there to choose their primary targets, and you can go to work from there. I don't want to give this too short a time, but I do have a lot to cover, so I'm going to move on from here. But you do have a very detailed page 5 and 6, how to generate this list, this who do you know list of people who are going to be your targets for the Rotary year. I'll catch up here. Okay, prospect identification. Another way to generate prospects for your club are resources that are available, such as some of the websites like Zoom Info and Info USA, as well as your local chamber who has professional listings. You can think about, okay, which vocations do we not have in our club that ought to be represented? I'm betting that most of you have got an accountant. Most of you have got an attorney. You have some of those, you have a financial planner, advisor in your club. You're going to have those sorts of people. You probably have some not-for-profits represented. But do you have people from manufacturing? Do you have people from clergy? Do you have people from, excuse me, funeral services industry or from construction? You can think about those vocations so that you can be sure that your community is well represented and that you're not too concentrated in one area. And then you'll notice at the bottom of that slide, invite to a Rotary Information Hour. We are going to talk some more about that as well as next week. Now, I referenced before that a podium announcement, okay, it's great. It puts the topic out there. But if I make an announcement like that to you today, to all you, that, hey, I sure hope to get an email from you later telling me what you got out of this session, I won't get an email from any of you because none of you is responsible to do that. I didn't reach out and say, Frank Cox, will you agree to send me a note later about how I could improve my presentation? You will? That's fantastic. Thank you, Frank. I am counting on getting that note from you later. That kind of one-on-one conversation with your club members is going to create the accountability that's going to give you a much better follow-through. Plus, it's a great chance to touch base with your members. Now, if you're in a club of 20 or 25, that's manageable for a president over a period of time. You do a couple calls, 3 calls a day, you'll be through it quickly. If you're in a club of 100, well, perhaps what you want to do is you might want to have your board, or you might want to have your membership committee take 20 members each and do it that way. But making those individual calls is very important to create that individual accountability and to help start building the culture that bringing prospects, at the very least, if not new members to your club, is just part of being a member of our club. So that prospect identification is quite important. Okay, now our number one method, this is number 4, is a Rotary information hour, sometimes called a Discover Rotary hour. Either one is fine. Most clubs will do this about once a month. Some will do it every other month, but this is not a social. It has a social aspect to it, but it is not exclusively a social. And this is absolutely guaranteed way to bring new members to your club. And it is detailed more on page 9 of your resources. This will typically have a short social time just to be sure that everybody has arrived, an opportunity for some introductions, and then it's going to have a presentation about why Rotary is important, about what your club has done in its community, why in fact your club is vital to your community and very likely is integral to the history of your community. All of the reasons that a person would want to be a part of your club, so that person walks out not with a bunch of jargon, not with a bunch of acronyms, not seeing people get up and down out of their seats at a meeting, but they learn about what your club is, what it does, why it's important, and frankly, why those prospects should want to join your club. And I have been a part of many of these Discover Rotary or Rotary informational hours, and in my experience, done properly, 50% at a minimum, 50% of those prospects who attend will join your club. And I know clubs who do these particularly well, who will bring in 75% of those prospects who come to a Discover Rotary hour. It is that effective. So you might think to yourself, okay, I'm going to have one of these every month, and perhaps we only have 4 people show up. In fact, the first one I was ever involved with, 4 people showed up, and I thought, wow, I wonder if this was worth it. Well, 3 of them joined my club, and I pretty quickly decided that was worth it. That was worth an hour of my time to help set that up. Now, again, you want to be sure, just as with your who do you know club assembly, you are reaching out to members, you are letting them know, here is the date, here's when we're going to do this. This is why it's important. You've created that accountability in generating a prospect list. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Now, we're in a COVID era, right? So it's a little bit harder to get together for 1 hour in person. You can do these just as we are meeting today. There are multiple clubs across both Carolinas right now that are doing that and are still having success. They are still finding that prospects, in some ways, people are even more thirsty for connection with people, and they understand there's a heightened need in their communities for what Rotary brings to communities. So you can be just as effective with this type of meeting, with a Zoom meeting, doing that online. So again, I'm not going to read pages 9 and 10 to you because I know you can read, but if you come away with nothing else from today, remember number 4 from this list of intentional strategies. Number 5, drip marketing. Now, Terry is an expert on this drip marketing module that is available within DACDB, the district database software that all of our clubs use and all our districts in this area use. There is a module that is included with DACDB that makes it very easy to have drip marketing. And what is drip marketing? Well, of course, it is just getting that touch with prospects every so often. So when you send a club newsletter out, or you send an announcement out, or you let people know, hey, our big annual social is coming up, you can include your prospects on that list. So you keep Rotary in front of them every so often. I drip marketed to a person I met many years ago, 15 years ago, on behalf of another Rotary club. He didn't live that close to where my club met. But I kept saying, I wish you'd check out this club near you. Well, I just kept touching base. It was never the right time. He had a governmental position, elected position. He was quite busy. And lo and behold, after 5 years, he called me and he said, hey, Patrick, you know, you've been staying after me about Rotary. I said, yep. I said, are you ready to visit the Clemens Rotary Club? He said, actually, no. He said, I just took a job and it's across the street from where your club meets. I'd love to come visit. But it's because I had kept marketing to him just a little bit. I didn't bother him, but every, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, he'd get a note from me about, hey, I hope you're thinking about this. You're just the kind of person who'd make a great Rotarian. And I'm pleased to tell you he was the first person I sponsored who became a president of our club. So that story has a great ending. Was a super president for our club. But that's what drip marketing about, is you want to stay in front of people. Excuse me. Flexibilities. Now, council and legislation, that's the governing body of Rotary that meets every 3 years. So we're still talking about the 2016 council on legislation because it created so much flexibility for Rotary clubs. It is the body that said, okay, you no longer have to meet every week as a Rotary club. You can meet twice a month. You can, if you want, meet once as a traditional type of meeting, and you can meet for a service project for a second time in the month. It created more flexibility in the types of members that we can have join Rotary. It provided all kinds of flexibilities. And in 2019, when the Council on Legislation met, it only increased that type of flexibility. So basically what Rotary has said is, we understand that you know in your community what works best. And why should we legislate to you a bunch of rules that get in the way of you doing Rotary the way it works best in your area? So observe our 4-way test, observe service above self, but otherwise in good taste, you implement Rotary the way you need to. So it provides you a lot of flexibility. And we're going to talk some more about that as we move. Okay, so alternative membership types, some of what was created by that council on legislation. Corporate memberships, where perhaps you have a situation, I've seen this applied a number of different ways. I've seen a bank that says, we always want our branch manager to be in this Rotary Club, and we're going to set up a corporate membership with you. Smaller communities often will have people who come in and run a branch for a couple of years and then move to a larger market. And it's a great way to build that relationship with that branch where you always have a member from there. I've seen mom and pop shops where there are 2 or 3 people who work at a business. They can't come to a lunch club, all of them, or they'll have to shut the place down. But they want to have that membership where one or the other can come to your meeting. And you can decide how you set up dues. Often there is a membership and it allows for 1 meal each week. And then if additional folks come, they just pay for the extra meals. You can set that up. You have that flexibility. Family memberships work much the same way, where you can have multiple members based out of a single family. Service-only memberships are becoming very popular, and I've seen clubs put this to great use where perhaps it's a lunch club and a person lives nearby but works out of town, but really wants to be involved with the service of that club. Well, they're charged some nominal dues to be a part of the club, and on the days when they happen to be in town and able to attend and have lunch, they pay for the lunch that day, but it's not baked into the full financial package to join that club. Again, these are creative ways that you can set up your clubs and your membership types. A YP 35, a young professional 35, which often acts like a junior membership at a country club or another organization where it might be a little bit discounted, but at age 35, they move to regular dues. So you have that kind of flexibility that has not always been in place in Rotary. More recently, we're seeing a very strong move toward clubs that are organized a little bit differently than they were in the past. Interest-based clubs. There's actually a motorcycling club in the upper Midwest where everybody in that club is an avid motorcyclist, and that's how they came together. And they're interested in service, they're interested in fellowship, they're interested in leadership. You know what? That's just fine. Cause-based clubs. There are multiple social justice clubs that are in formation right now. There is a veterans club that has been established and is thriving. Not all veterans in the club, but all people who are concerned with veterans affairs, with a healthy portion of the membership coming from veterans. Satellite clubs, which hopefully by now you've heard about, but just in case, clubs that meet at a different time and location from the sponsoring club, what we might think of as a legacy Rotary club. And those satellite clubs basically do their own thing. They might not meet on the same frequency, they may not have the same focuses, but they're attached to the sponsor club. And satellite clubs can be as small as 8 and be an official satellite club. And in many instances, clubs just have an alternate meeting time without being an official satellite club, and that works fine too. Because what we're finding is lunch as a time for clubs is becoming less and less attractive over time. People are busy in the middle of the day, and they do a little bit better if they've got some flexibility there. Okay, and I talked about the benefits of satellite clubs. I think I've already touched on this, but that is just another way to be flexible. Onboarding new members, very important. We know if we start a new job, how important it is in terms of orientation and those first impressions people have. Onboarding, orientation, the way people come into a Rotary club is equally important. We know that we lose members at the highest rate in the first 3 years of Rotary. If we can keep them for 3 to 5 years, we generally are going to have them for the long term. So setting up solid onboarding is very, very important. New member scavenger hunt. Now some clubs use the red badge. If you use a red badge, could you raise your hand? Any of your clubs? Yeah, and that's a way of doing onboarding. But some clubs will use a scavenger hunt just to keep it fun. Some clubs set up passports where members do various things. They get their passport stamped. This is, I think you have available on page 11, is one way to go about getting your members involved. Some clubs will take all the members that come in a 12-month period and have them set up a new project for the club, a new service project, something that they own where they get that full investment in their club. So there are lots of ways to do this, but what's important is that as part of the onboarding process, people understand the requirements of Rotary, be that financial, service, participation, and they understand the benefits of Rotary, and then they get to experience that by diving in. Having some guidance to do that, or even a one-on-one mentor with an experienced Rotarian is a good way to get that onboarding accomplished. Member retention. We talk about upgrading the club experience, and frankly, that has an impact for member retention as well as attracting new members. Got to be sure that your club programs matter. They've got to be on topic. They've got to have broad interest. You want really good speakers. You want people to think leading up to your meeting, man, I got to get to the meeting this week because I know I'm going to hear something interesting or educational or inspirational, something that's going to matter. Because as we say at the bottom of this slide, club members quit the club. They don't quit Rotary. They quit clubs. You got to be sure your club is not one that people want to quit. Keep that member experience up there. Rotary Club Health Check. This is a nice tool that Rotary makes available. My Rotary, which is our member area of the Rotary International website, is down for a couple more days for some upgrades, but you can get the health check from the address that you see there on the screen, or you can just Google it and you can pull it up. The Rotary Club Health Check is a good way to assess your club on how you're doing, maybe get some ideas for some ways you can add some sizzle to your club. I mentioned mentorship before in terms of membership retention. Many clubs will assign 1 or 2 people to manage the onboarding of each new member. Really important. And obviously you want to be thoughtful about how you pair those mentors and mentees, both in terms of style and being sure that you have a Rotarian who's the right person to act as a mentor. Meaningful service projects. So important. Many of us, service is what drives a big piece of the value for us in Rotary. So being sure that your service projects, you're not just repeating the same ones each year, you're thinking about what's most important in your community. And as I said, you might consider having your new members come together each year to choose a new project that's meaningful for your club. It's a great way to build some teamwork there. Okay, so we talked about prospect identification. That's the who do you know piece. That is the classification and professional gap analysis. And we talked about certainly presidents making a personal ask as we move into number 2 here, attracting members. The president making a personal ask of members, or perhaps dividing that out among a membership committee. And then we talked about the Rotary Information Hour, which is the absolute can't miss part of the strategies that we're providing for you. It is number 4, but it's number 1 in terms of your return on investment. Drip marketing, part of that attracting new members piece. Taking advantage of the flexibilities that Rotary has granted to us, both in terms of membership type and in terms of innovative types of clubs that can be established now. We talked about onboarding new members, the importance of a new orientation. That scavenger hunt that we talked about can be a key part of that. And then in terms of retaining new members, upgrading the club experience, the Rotary Club Health Check can be an important tool in assessing your club experience. Mentorship, which is quite important and to me is still part of the onboarding process. And then also meaningful service projects, absolutely critical. So your takeaways, we talked about this. Rotary is a membership organization. Service is what we do, but membership organization is what we are. Intentional strategies. The Discover Rotary Hour, number 1 in terms of effectiveness. And next week, there's going to be a nice segment to talk about Rotary Information Hours, Discover Rotary Hours, and how to do those effectively. And I promise you, if you will put those into play, you're going to see a jump in terms of the way you are able to bring in new members. Satellite clubs or alternative meeting time clubs are a very effective way to grow your membership. So I hope that you will consider those. Terry spoke before, attrition is real. It is going to happen. Every year there are a handful of club leaders who say, no, we're not going to lose members this year. And then when May and June come around, bam, they get hit between the eyes because somehow they manage to get back to that 12, 14, 16% of their club that they've lost. It happens. Take it to the bank. It's going to happen. Retention is for the long term. The things that we talked about to increase retention are great long-term strategies. And if you put those in place, they're also going to help your attraction. But in the meantime, and right now, the attraction piece is important. So put those intentional strategies into place. I mentioned members don't quit Rotary, they quit clubs. And that's true. If there is a good experience at a Rotary club, the members are not going to quit for reasons of the club. Yes, life happens. People move away. People pass away. People hit incredible financial hardships that were unanticipated. There can be reasons that occur, but you want to bring your club's attrition down to that minimum to strive for that 10% if you can get there, that world-class number. So much of membership is within your club's control. The clubs that take to heart these intentional strategies, who put them in place, can have huge gains in membership. Interestingly, after 3 years of a membership summit in my own district, my own club finally put this into play over the last year. And our club went from 77 to 94 members. And on top of that, added a satellite club with 18 members above those 94. Huge growth. And it was all because I guess they finally figured I wasn't lying to them. They figured out if we put these into play, if we use these intentional strategies, we're going to have success. And they absolutely worked it just like a cookbook, just went right down the recipe and had great success. Finally, it's up to all of us to grow Rotary. I mentioned before you might have a membership committee of 5 people, but truly everybody is a part of the membership committee. You have to realize that when you're in contact with people, you have an opportunity to share what Rotary has meant to you and the value of Rotary that has been so important to you. So that makes you part of the membership committee. I'm going to stop my screen share. And then we can see each other again. I think we still have a few minutes. I'm sure that Terry or I would be happy to field any questions or your comments, because I know we covered a lot of information there. So would welcome any thoughts or questions you have. You can just hit the space bar or unmute yourself.